Stop what you're doing and listen. Japan just pulled the emergency brake on the world's most fragile debt system. And the shockwaves are hitting everywhere. Your savings, your investments, your future. Can you feel it? This isn't some distant headline. It's a global alarm screaming right now. The yen collapsed, confidence shattered, and the lie the world's been told about limitless debt just exploded in front of everyone. You need to know this now, because what happens next will affect every economy, every market, and every person living in this interconnected world. Stick with me, because by the end of this report, you'll see exactly why Japan's move isn't just a local crisis. It's a warning for the globe. And the truth will change the way you think about money, power, and stability. Japan's emergency move just shattered the illusion that global debt is controllable, and the yen's collapse exposed the limit of money. Printing and every major economy felt the shock. Japan's emergency move just shattered the illusion that global debt is controllable, and the yen's collapse exposed the limit of money. Printing and every major economy felt the shock. This is not speculation, not theory, not some distant academic argument. This is breaking news in real time, and it has massive consequences that governments, central banks, and global markets are scrambling behind the scenes to contain. What happened in Japan isn't a localized emergency. It's a flashing red alert for the entire global system, because the strategy Japan has leaned on for decades is the same strategy the rest of the world has quietly depended on to keep everything afloat. And now, that strategy has hit the wall. For years, the world has been told a comforting story. Debt can grow endlessly. Central banks can always intervene. And currencies will remain stable because policymakers have it under control. Japan was the poster child of this narrative. Zero interest rates. Japan did it first. Trillions in money printing? Japan led the way. Government debt bigger than the entire economy. Japan normalized it. For decades, the world pointed at Japan and said, "See, it works." But this week, Japan proved it doesn't, not anymore. And the speed of what unfolded should terrify anyone still clinging to the idea that today's global debt levels are manageable. The yen didn't just weaken, it broke. It slid past levels that even seasoned analysts admitted were unthinkable 6 months ago. Currency traders, bond markets, and central banks across the world watched Japan's financial defenses buckle in real time. And then, in a move that instantly told the world something far worse was happening behind the scenes, Japan stepped in. Hard, emergency support, market intervention. The kind of aggressive action you only take when the situation is spiraling faster than your public statements will ever admit. Because when a central bank operates with confidence, it doesn't intervene. It guides. It signals. It manages expectations. But when it intervenes suddenly, forcefully, without warning, that's not confidence. That's panic. And the second Japan moved, the global reaction was instantaneous. Bond yields swung. Currencies jerked. Investors dumped risky assets. And every major economy, from the US to Europe to emerging markets, felt the tremor. Because Japan's model isn't just Japan's. It's the global financial operating system. The one everyone is counted on. The one built on the belief that you can paper over structural weakness with cheap money and no one will notice. Well, everyone noticed. Here's the truth that Japan just exposed. There is a limit to how much debt the world can create before reality breaks through. There is a limit to how long central banks can suppress interest rates before markets revolt. There is a limit to how much money you can print before your currency becomes a casualty. And there is absolutely a limit to how long investors will keep pretending everything is fine when the numbers say otherwise. Japan's emergency move wasn't just a reaction to currency pressure. It was a confession that the entire structure is reaching its breaking point. For decades, Japan has been the global experiment in debt, fueled stability. And as long as that experiment appeared stable, the world felt comfortable pushing the same boundaries. Countries borrowed more, central banks printed more, Politicians promised more, markets demanded more stimulus, and everyone kept pointing to Japan as proof it was sustainable. But that proof just exploded, because a system built on endless debt only works if confidence stays intact. And confidence disappears the moment the central bank shows it is losing control of its currency. The yen's collapse wasn't just about Japan. It was a referendum on modern economic policy. It was the market saying, "You've gone too far. The math doesn't work. The illusion is over." And when the illusion breaks in a country like Japan, stable, wealthy, technologically advanced, globally integrated, it doesn't stay contained, it spreads outward fast. You could feel the panic ripple across global markets as traders realized what this meant. If Japan is losing control, who's next? The US, with its record deficits and rising interest costs? Europe, already strained by weak growth and political instability? China, wrestling with deflation and a collapsing property market? Japan isn't the weak link. Japan is the warning. And what's even more alarming is how quickly the narrative flipped. For years, policymakers insisted that debt doesn't matter because interest rates are low. Well, interest rates aren't low anymore. They insisted currencies would remain stable because central banks are credible. That credibility is now being tested daily. They insisted interventions weren't necessary because markets trusted the long-term strategy. That trust shattered the moment Japan stepped in to save the yen. This isn't just a financial move. This is a psychological turning point. Once markets see a central bank panic, they start looking for the next one. Japan's emergency action didn't calm markets. It rattled them. It raised every question global leaders have been avoiding. What happens when debt becomes unmanageable? What happens when interest payments swallow national budgets? What happens when currencies crack under the weight of decades of artificial stability? Japan just gave us the preview, and the world is now bracing for the full version. What makes this moment so urgent is that it didn't happen gradually. It wasn't a slow slide. It was a break, a sudden, violent rupture in a system that had been stretched to its limits. That's the part people need to understand. Systems don't unravel slowly. They hold and hold and hold until they don't. And then things move fast. Japan hit that point this week, and the shock is still spreading. Because once one major economy loses control of its currency, it forces every other economy to make a choice, defend or adjust, raise rates or intervene, protect your currency or protect your economy. There are no good options. There are only reactions. And when countries start reacting instead of leading, that's when you know the system is no longer stable. Japan reacted, and in doing so, it exposed the fragility every other nation has been trying to hide. The global debt lie wasn't that debt exists. The lie was that it could grow forever, without consequence. Japan just proved that's not true. And now every major economy is on the clock. Central banks just lost their most powerful weapon, market confidence, and Japan's intervention confirms the debt bubble is no longer stable. It's reactive. This is the shock officials hoped would never hit the global stage. For years, central banks relied on the belief that their words alone could steady markets. Not anymore. Japan's sudden emergency move cracked that illusion wide open. The moment a major economy is forced into direct intervention, the message is unmistakable. The system isn't being guided. It's being rescued. And that rescue exposed the truth every government has been quietly ignoring. The debt machine isn't operating smoothly, it's sputtering. Investors saw the shift instantly. Instead of reassurance, they saw fear. Instead of policy strength, they saw scrambling. And when the world's most indebted major economy panics, every other nation tied to the same fragile debt architecture is suddenly on alert. This isn't control, it's containment. Global bond markets are now flashing the same warning Japan could no longer hide, and the era of infinite borrowing is over, and Japan was the first to hit the wall. Yields are spiking, volatility is rising, and investors are dumping risk as fast as they can read the charts. Japan's scramble to stabilize its currency didn't calm the system, it exposed it. The world just watched the most debt-heavy major economy admit the model broke. And that single moment shattered the assumption that governments can borrow endlessly without consequence. Markets are no longer buying the story. They're pricing in reality, Currency stress in Tokyo is triggering capital flight across the world, and Japan's model failed. And it's the model every major economy has been copying. The yen's rapid slide didn't stay in Japan's borders. It set off a global rush into safer assets, as investors realized the foundation they trusted is cracking. Japan's emergency actions confirmed what analysts feared: the decades-long experiment of endless stimulus, suppressed rates, and rising debt has reached its breaking point. And because so many countries mirrored Japan's strategy, the shock is now spreading through their markets too. This is no longer a Japan problem. This is the global system showing its fracture point. And the world just learned the truth. Once debt overwhelms growth, collapse moves fast. Japan's intervention didn't just reveal stress, it exposed a synchronized vulnerability across major economies, all running the same high debt, low growth playbook. Markets saw currencies wobble, bond yields jump, and liquidity tighten within hours. The message is unmistakable. When one pillar cracks, the entire structure shudders. And with global debt now far beyond sustainable levels, the timeline between warning and impact is shrinking. The truth is laid bare: debt is no longer abstract, markets are no longer predictable, and stability is no longer guaranteed. Japan exposed the fracture in a global system that impacts you personally, financially, and directly. You can't ignore it. Stay alert, stay informed, and use this awareness to make smarter, more powerful decisions. The world is shifting, and you need to see it coming. This is USA World Reports, where we don't just deliver the news. We give you the clarity to take control. Thank you for watching. If this fired you up, hit like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with everyone who needs to see the truth. Stay alert and stay ahead of the next global shock. The next report is coming, and you won't want to miss it. Be ready, be informed, be empowered.